With Anakin, obviously we've come a really long way. During his temperament eval, the two big things that we recognized right off the bat: one, he hated being restrained. He had some serious issues being restrained. Kind of looking at where he came from and what medical he had, it's not a crazy stretch of the imagination to assume he was an outdoor dog, probably around a lot of other dogs where he was fighting or getting in fights over food. And when he got fleas and that skin condition started to get really bad, they most likely tried to hold him down and hose him. And that's where I'm guessing a lot of that stems from, because the only two things with his temperament that were big red flags were, again, being restrained. He got aggressive, and then he was a really bad resource guarder, really possessive over food, toys, even water bowls, stuff like that. So those are two things that we had to address right off the bat. With our temperament eval though, and this is because we always want to set our dogs up for success and put them in the best home possible, but also from a liability standpoint, once a dog shows that they are a resource guarder, for instance, and they are capable of that, or they have that in them, they are not going to a home with small children. The reason we do that, quite frankly, is because kids can't be trusted, and we like the process that we have in place. It is thorough, but you can't fully get to know a full family and the dynamic and how they parent their kids within a week. You just can't do it. I don't care how good you think you are. And our job is to make sure that they're set up for success and in a home where they're most likely going to succeed. So for Anakin, no small kids in the house. Obviously though, you guys are seeing from the clips, those are things that we have worked through, and the blueprint to that we hand over to the family during the trial run. So with dogs like Anakin, we have multiple meets. And then during the trial run, we have very strict rules and guidelines to follow so that you can begin working through those things. Because outside of that, he really is a phenomenal dog. Again, it is just building that trust and that relationship with him, and we help you do that. Well, also, I guess, yeah, I can say with Anakin, and again, it's hard when we don't have the full notes. We just know that his owners surrendered him because of fleas, basically, because they were too lazy or stupid to give him flea medication. But again, you're kind of surmising with what you're dealing with and looking at. Like I said, outdoor dog, definitely, probably other dogs on the property. Where he was fighting for food, that's my guess where the resource guardian came from. With him being restrained, I'm assuming, based on what we evaluated, that they tried to hold him down and hose him to deal with the skin. So again, you're making assumptions, but that's how we start to identify where that fear, where that aggression is coming from. So it can be different with different dogs. You have fear, aggression, obviously, you have insecurities. You do occasionally have just aggressive dogs, but it's very rare in my experience. So with Anakin, going off of those assumptions, good boy, it was about putting him in positive situations and starting to use some positive association training. That's not going to be the way we go about behavioral issues with all dogs. But with him, again, it was my assumption that he was afraid of being restrained because he had been put in bad positions where when he was restrained, he was uncomfortable. It's kind of that fight or flight mode, and he was put into that fight mode a lot. So when we initially started to do things like grooming him, handling him, it was very slow. It was always a controlled environment, and we made sure that we were controlling all the variables and making it a good experience for him. Look at you. Yeah. Feeling how good you're doing? Mm-hmm. Same thing with the resource guardian. So with the resource guardian, yes, you'll see some people do hand feeding and stuff like that. I've seen that work with puppies and young dogs. Again, I'm assuming he was on a property where he had to fight for food. So it was structuring his feeding time. So he was fed in his crate all the time. So he had this one constant variable. And then we moved to outside, started working on basic obedience work where he had to hold a sit or a wait alone with no other dogs, just me and him, or Steph and him. And it was putting the bowl down, having him hold that sit and wait. So he understood that when we gave him that command, he could come get his food. So he starts to feel comfortable. He understands the structure of that. And then inside the crate, because there was some boundary resource guarding issues, we call these drive-bys. And again, we are not trainers. We are just sharing our life with you. We've rescued over 600 dogs. Every dog is a little bit different. These are things we do. I'm not telling you to do any of this, especially our temperament eval. I don't recommend you do our temperament eval. We want to know everything there is to possibly know about these dogs so we can put them in the perfect home. If you bring a new dog in your home and you start pulling on their ears and tails and playing with their mouth, I don't recommend that. But anyway, with Anakin, drive-bys. So we identified first, okay, when we're 4 feet away from his crate and he has a toy, a bone, food in there,
Yeah.
he starts to lunge and get aggressive. So at 4.5 feet, just before that trigger goes off, we're going to toss him a piece of chicken. That's immediately a positive experience for him. So now
We don't want to wait until he
No, and you
reacts, because
don't-
then you're feeding into that and rewarding that behavior. So like Duke said, you
Right.
want to catch it right before you think it's about to happen, and then it's almost like de-escalating the issue.
Yes, if it happens, walk away, start over. You do not want to reward the dog for that behavior. So catch it in front, and then eventually it's okay. Now it's 3 feet where he starts to react. So at 3.5 feet, toss the piece of chicken in. Good experience. Now he's associating us walking by his crate with that high value item with, oh, sweet.
Now he's
I get a treat.
disappointed.
And
He's like,
now
whoa, whoa, whoa.
we've closed that gap.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we work towards Anakin. So again, with some of these dogs, unless we have a boatload of notes or they're picked up by animal control where we know exactly what the situation is, it's kind of looking at the whole picture, looking at the medical, looking at their behavioral, and you're just kind of guessing or surmising like, okay, this is probably the situation was in, this is what I'm seeing. So this is either insecurity, fear-based aggression, and we start working towards that. And most of the time we've gotten pretty good about nailing it. There's times though we're like, ah, that wasn't it. And we have to reroute.
Yeah.
But with Anakin, that was the fix.
Yeah.
Do you not like it, bud? Okay. That's new. Sit. Sit. Mr. Hops. Come on. Give me a good paw. Give me a good paw. Anakin, paw.